All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, September 16th, 2020 meeting of the Chappaqua Board of Education. I apologize for the delay. We had technical difficulty with our projector, but I am told that this is now fixed. The board has been in executive session to discuss matters of health and safety, litigation, the employment history of particular persons, and to receive advice of counsel. I would like to call for a motion and a second to reconvene the public session.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Jane and Holly. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Holly McCall.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. David, can we raise the volume a little on Vicky's, on the mic? Thank you.
Okay. All right, this is our first meeting since the reopening of schools, and I would just like to thank our faculty and our staff and our administrators and our parents and our students for working so hard together to make this happen. We're still not at 100% the way we planned to be, but it's been a great effort. It's been a great partnership, and I just want to appreciate everyone's cooperation and great amount of patience. And we know that you will continue to help us to all do the right things and, you know, keep to all the protocols. And we feel very fortunate that so far things have gone well. But we will stay on the alert. And we know that things can change very quickly, so we will be very cautious and keep everyone informed. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to welcome a new member of our central administrative team. Ellen Doherty is our new Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel Services, and we're so happy to have her.
Thank you.
Along with Fiona. I don't know if Fiona is here.
Fiona is not here.
Okay, well, we will be getting to know Fiona as well. Fiona is Ellen's dog, and we welcome her presence when she's here. So welcome, Ellen. Welcome to our board table. It's nice to have you.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Before we start with our main presentation of the night, I would like to turn it over to Christine for a few minutes to discuss an incredible opportunity that we've been offered here in Chappaqua. And Christine is going to talk about a sustainability research center.
Thank you, Vicki. Adam and I are actually going to present together tonight. And this is a pretty comprehensive project that we have been working on with the foundation for about a year and a half. But I'd like to provide some context for probably the largest donation the district has received, perhaps in its history, from a single foundation that will be earmarked for a particular structure in our high school community. So we've been working collectively on a sustainability research center at Greeley. And what we had done over the past probably year and a half, 2 years with the foundation is that we've been exploring different opportunities to enhance our academic program here at the high school, and we wanted to consider what way we can partner together to provide an opportunity for all students to benefit from in the district. And when we looked at our program holistically, we saw that we had a lot of faculty engaged in sustainability projects throughout the district, but we didn't really have a space to house those projects. So in our quest to determine how to best move forward, we had done a lot of research, and we looked at different trends in our environment, and I think all of us can agree there are a lot of concerns related to global warming, to consumption, to hunger, to climate change, and how the next generation or our new generation of students are faced with challenges that they really need to engage in around this work to help support and sustain our global community. So we looked at major universities, and we actually visited a few that we'll be sharing with you a little bit further in this presentation, but we looked at what kind of spaces were students engaging in sustainability research in. So we found that at most major universities and at many of the universities that our students were applying to go to for graduate and undergraduate studies, they all had dedicated programs of studies around sustainability, and they had spaces to do that work within. So then we looked at what are some career paths that students are engaged in once they graduate around sustainability work within the context of our community, and we saw that this is a rising field, that many of our students would have the opportunity to engage in this work in terms of their future employment, and this was a growing opportunity of work for the next generation. So then we discussed collectively, well, if we were to have a facility in our space, what are some ways that we can use this facility to enhance the curriculum work that's been taking place in the high school currently, and expand on that work that we've been engaged in collectively to align with what's happening in major research universities around this nation. So Adam's actually going to come up and talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Christine. So the first thing I'd like to say about this is, as a former science teacher, this is a really, really exciting opportunity to even have the opportunity to explore it over the last couple of years. So I'm really excited to present this to you. The first thing is this is not a greenhouse. This is going to be a sustainability research center. And our vision for this is really to have our Greeley students have the opportunity to get into a space to conduct high-level biological research around environmental science. So that's our goal, and we think it's actually a space that we will likely be able to use with all of our students in the district, where we can bring some of our students from K-8 up to Greeley so they can have experiences here at Greeley. So we worked for a little over a year with the Chappaqua School Foundation and our Innovation Committee, which they help us co-lead, and Mr. Colwell Block, who's here in the audience, helps me lead that group. And it's a group of stakeholders, so we have some parents involved in it, we have students involved in it, we have faculty, we have administrators, and we've been able to do quite a bit of work around the type of curriculum that we'd like to see in this space and the type of learning experiences that we'd like students to have. The first thing we did is we looked through the program of studies, and we identified some courses and some programs that we thought would really be a good fit for this space, and we wanted to get a sense of how many students might be impacted by it just with these courses. So you can see here a list of courses and programs that we think would be a really nice fit for a space like this. And then we also looked for creative things that our faculty and students were doing that they would be able to expand and elaborate on if we had a nice space. So this is a hydroponics setup that our students at Greeley here created in Mr. DeBellis's class, and they're actually using kind of a renovated back room. It's almost like a closet space that they've put some grow lights in, and they've built this hydroponics setup. This is actually part of one of our courses that we have, and they truly just don't have the right space to do this kind of work, but they're making do with what they have at this point. So we'd be able to expand programs like this through living environment, tech and design, principles of engineering. Another really nice thing about this is that these are the types of science experiments that are interdisciplinary, so they require students to bring in pieces from their science classes, but also math, political science, other areas as well. We visited some different schools here. This is from Murrow High School down in Brooklyn. We got to visit. They have a greenhouse up on one of their roofs that they're building, and we got to meet with some students and see some of the experiences that they have there. So that's one of the Murrow High School students with a hydroponic setup that they have there in their greenhouse. We also met with some of our students here at Greeley, and this is a quote from one of our AP Environmental Science students who talked a little bit about some of the labs that they do in AP Environmental Science and how they might be able to be expanded in this new space. So we did a little bit of brainstorming with the Innovation Committee to see if we could think of some new and creative courses. This is one of my favorite parts of this, and so we brainstormed some ideas of perhaps offering a food science course where we could partner with our cafeteria and maybe a local farmer education center, do some research on sustainability and food production. We thought about a business course, merge the ideas of entrepreneurship with perhaps like organic farming, do some experimentation with rare and endangered species, perhaps a partnership with the botanical gardens down in the Bronx. We have a sustainable futures class, but we were thinking like sustainable futures 2.0 and what that might look like. And I mentioned our K-8 educational programs, how we might be able to bring students up from our other buildings up to Greeley. So we went off, as Christine said, and visited some of the universities to get some ideas and also some local high schools, and Christine's going to elaborate on that part now.
So every time we had an opportunity to go see this work in action, we learned a significant amount of information to help design and shape our project. So we visited Brown University first, and we saw firsthand how they use different sections of their climate-controlled sustainability center to engage in all different types of research. And so what we found important as we went forward and we visited the high school, Edward Murrow High School and Brown, and we went to the University of Arizona, that we knew that we needed to have different sections of our Sustainability Research Center that were climate controlled so we can do different types of experiments and work within the context of each section. And we found when we went out to University of Arizona, there were two types of facilities that we visited. There was a lot of sophisticated work around the way that they designed their centers in terms of how they use light, how they use false light, and different opportunities beyond the structure itself to help students engage in this work. And then finally, we went to Cornell, and they probably had the most extensive program that we were able to learn from. And we actually partnered with one of their experts to help serve as a consultant in our work in designing our facility, since this is a structure that doesn't currently exist in any of the school districts across the state as we envision it to be, since it'll be a state-of-the-art arts and sustainability center. So we leveraged Cornell to have an expert help support our design process, and from here we talked about different programs of study that we could help incorporate beyond what we were currently doing within our curriculum, as well as how we would use the structure in a way to support the work that we're currently engaged in. So in terms of where the Sustainability Research Center will be, we are placing it in front of our new STEAM Center and connected to one of the current physics classrooms, and we'll relocate that physics classroom. So we plan on putting it here in the courtyard, and there'll be extensive construction to help facilitate this work for us as a district, and then we will connect it to one of the classrooms, which will be the head house where we'll be doing our staging work. In terms of design and instructional planning, Adam's going to talk a little bit about the work that he's been doing with the Innovation Committee to prepare for the site coming online.
Thank you. So an exciting part of this work for me is to time the development of curriculum and the professional learning required for the faculty to be able to really powerfully put that curriculum in place, and to have that be a parallel track with construction. And I do want to mention John's support of this. John Chow has been a tremendous help when it comes to working through the architectural plans and obviously the business aspects of this. But our innovation committee on the other side, as the architects were working on the site and the various construction components, we also had that team that I mentioned, that innovation committee, that was working on the types of things that we would need to do on a timeline to make sure that the launch of the opening of the building aligned to the professional development, and also what we needed to do with regard to making sure that we have the right curriculum written and the materials and the supplies. So I think that actually this plan we developed last year, prior to COVID. We may have to readjust a few things as we go forward here, but in terms of once we get some timelines on construction, we'll make sure that we merge in the curriculum and the professional development with the opening of the building, so that when the building is ready physically to be opened, our teachers are ready to move in, and they have powerful curriculum to put in place, and our students benefit from it as soon as the doors are open. So this is our roadmap, and like I said, we'll make some adjustments to this once we get some timelines from the architect.
All right, so in terms of supporting the development of the project, the anchor of our work has been the foundation, the Chappaqua Schools Foundation. We appreciate their support as we plan forward, and they have funded the design process that we've been engaged in with the architect, and they have supported the consultant from Cornell, and they have an anchor investment of up to $500,000 based on the completion of the project. We also want to thank the PTA for donating $15,000 to support the project last year, and so thank you, Kelly Mofield, on behalf of the district. We appreciate our gratitude to the PTA. And we had planned to to Zoom in the foundation tonight with the donor, but because of the delays associated with our technical issues, we're not going to be able to do that. But the reason we are presenting to you tonight is because the James Foundation has pledged a $1.5 million donation to the district to support our Sustainability Research Center. So although Kathy James couldn't be with us tonight, I'd like to just share with you a little bit about the Robert and Artist James Foundation. And this was established in 1986 by Robert and Artist James, who were our residents in Chappaqua, whose children went through the school district and attended our high school. And the foundation has a broad range of philanthropic interests, including arts, and a particular emphasis on higher education and preparing students for higher education. And so tonight's donation is actually being made on behalf of Kathy James's brother, Robert Gregory James Jr. And we're so appreciative of Kathy and her family supporting the district and honoring the district in this way in the memory of their brother. So I thought it was important to share the context around the gifts so our community could understand that because of Kathy and her family's generous donation to the district and our partnership with the PTA and the Chappaqua Schools Foundation, we'll be able to move forward in building a sustainability research center at Greeley that's unlike anything that exists, that we've been able to glean in any school district in New York State, let alone our region. So I'm so pleased to be able to, on behalf of the school district, express my deep gratitude to all of our partners, but particularly to Kathy and her family tonight for choosing to support us and the education of our students in this way. So thank you.
So thank you, Christine and Adam. So on behalf of the board and the board on behalf of the entire community, want to thank Kathy James and the Robert and Artist James Foundation for donating $1.5 million for the benefit of our students and residents of the Chappaqua Central School Foundation for this incredible bioclimatic and sustainability research center. We would not have been able to do this without their very generous donations. The monies will go through the Chappaqua School Foundation to meet the legal requirements of the donor foundation. This is the largest gift ever given to the CCSD. We are tremendously grateful to Kathy for this incredibly generous donation. No other public school in the region has anything like this. And like Christine showed us, we've had to go to colleges to find models for this work, both for the structure itself and the curriculum around it. So our students and the entire field of sustainability will make great advances as a result of this gift. I also want to thank the Chappaqua School Foundation for facilitating the donation, and to CSF also for helping us envision how to use the research center. And of course, I also want to recognize the PTA for their very, very generous donation and help as well. And at this time, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate Kelly Mofield as our new PTA president and Peggy Machado as our new vice president for the PTA. And I also want to recognize Tara Brandoff as our new CSF president. So thank all of you. You've been incredible partners with CCSD, and we really appreciate the continued work with you. So at this point, I'd like to ask the board to consider a motion for item 1.1.1, the Sustainability Research Center donation. Be it resolved that the board hereby authorizes its president to execute an agreement for donation with the Robert and Artist James Foundation, Inc., the Chappaqua School Foundation, and the Chappaqua Central School District, dated September 16, 2020, as presented to the board at this meeting. Copy of said agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll move.
I'll second, Jane and Hillary. Any further discussion by the board? No? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. The donation is hereby accepted, and Kathy James, we're incredibly indebted to you and grateful to you. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to hear from you today because of the delay, but hopefully you will come another time to speak with us. Okay. Now I would like a motion on item 1.1.2, to approve a change to the name of our Community Advisory Committee on Anti-Racism, which is now to be known as Committee on Anti-Racism, Equity, and Social Justice. May I have a motion and a second?
I'd like to move 1.1.2.
Okay, I will second, and the reason we're doing it is because we are working with the district and with many other people, and it was important to use common terms. May I have a motion and a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to talk for a moment about our community advisory committees. We had set up a system whereby we will now have advisory committees to many of our standing committee, and in addition, we have a new committee. So we have the Anti-Racism, Equity, and Social Justice Committee. We will have 18 people as members of that community. We had a lot of really just highly qualified, everyone who applied would have done a great job on this committee. We had 42 people applied, and we will have 18 on the committee. We have a cross-section of the community. We have members who are from the BIPOC community. We have members at different school levels, elementary, middle, and high school. We try to get a balance of male and female as well. We will have 2 students. We have 2 board members who are co-chairs. We have a couple of administrators, 1 faculty member, and PTA representatives as well. There were many alumni who came forward to talk about their experiences with racism, and some alumni applied. We thought it would do justice to the different points of view of our alumni to give them the opportunity to participate in the committee through a different process, because it was difficult to pick who should be representing the alumni voice. So the committee itself will do the work of bringing in voices of the alumni. So thank you so much for everyone who applied for that committee. We also have a new Facilities Advisory Committee, which will be made up of 5 people. Wellness Committee, which will have 5. The Green Committee will have 3 members. These are community members that I'm referring to. They don't include board and administrators. We have our Health and Safety Committee with 3 members, and the Community Communications Advisory Committee with 3 members as well. So I want to thank everyone for applying, and we will list all of the committee members on our website. Okay. So now before I turn it over to Christine, I just want to say a few words on our anti-racism and equity presentation that we're going to have tonight. And I just want to reiterate that this is the very top priority for our school district. This work has been ongoing throughout the reopening of our schools, throughout this pandemic. And of course, reopening our schools is a priority in this pandemic, and all of this has been given top priority. So this is a continuation of the June 23rd presentation. So far, we've had a lot of input from the community, and we welcome and appreciate further input. I just want to stress that this is a work in progress. I am concerned that people might be having a lot of expectations today regarding this presentation. So again, this is a work in progress. With respect to the schools, we need to work on our curriculum offerings, on how the curriculum is delivered. We need to have a great deal of cultural proficiency and equity work with faculty and staff. And that's on the school. And we have committed to doing this, and we have really stressed that the school has not done enough here, and we are in the process of correcting that. The other side of it is what comes into our schools from the community. So as you well know, we have incidents of students exhibiting hate speech. And this is always difficult for the community. I know at times there's a narrative that this is coming out of the schools, and what are the schools going to do? The schools have a lot to do with regard to these incidents. There's a lot of teaching, a lot of learning to be done. I would just like everyone to understand that racism is everywhere, and it's reflected by our students that come into our school buildings, but it's coming out of somewhere, and it's coming out of the community. And I think that part of the narrative has not really acknowledged this. So I'm going to tell you that the school district is not going to eradicate racism. We received an interesting email just recently referring to the recent incident at Seven Bridges. And this email said, among other things, that we had not been successful at eradicating racism. So, I just want people to understand that this is something for everyone to work on. So I hope that people are not looking at the school district and expecting us to resolve the issue of racism. We have a lot of work to do. Our staff has to work on cultural proficiency. Our curriculum has to have changes. But there is a narrative out there that has got to change, and this has got to be a partnership. So I'm going to turn it over to Christine for the superintendent's report and our equity presentation.
Okay, thank you, Vicki, for your introduction. Again, I'd like to acknowledge my team behind me today and the work that's taken place since we last met back in June and talked about our pathway forward in terms of our summer work and how we see ourselves supporting our anti-racism and social justice educational program in our school community. So as a way to just frame our thinking around how we're going to approach this issue, as I shared with you initially back in June, we will act with purpose, we will accelerate our response, and we will show progress to the community. We recognize that there's a gap in how we, in what we espouse to be and where we currently are. And we plan to evolve through education to ensure that we're providing an equitable experience for all of our students here in this district. And we learned through our experience at the end of the spring semester and throughout the summer, in the feedback that we've received from our current students and alumni, that we have a lot of work to do collectively as a school community. So where we thought we would begin is Adam would share with you some of the opportunities that we have engaged in with our staff around anti-racism and social justice work towards the end of the spring semester and this summer. And then we will be sharing with you different aspects of our work around the curriculum and different target areas that we identified that we would be presenting on tonight through a rotation of the district level staff up here this evening. So I'd like to invite Adam to come and share with you some of our curriculum work that took place with our faculty. So Adam?
Thank you. So we thought it was important to start with a bit of a timeline to give you a sense of some of the work that we've engaged in over the last few months, and the board will recognize some of the things on this timeline. This timeline starts, we decided to start it in June, and then it's going to go on for quite a bit here until it brings us up to the current present time. And we couldn't possibly expand on all of these things tonight, but we thought it was important just to show the Board of Education the work that we've been trying to do over the summer as we have recommitted to this work in our district. So we started with June 4th, and this was while we still had students. We were learning remotely at the time, and as we were working with our teachers and teaching remotely, we also thought it was really important to start to infuse much more work around this topic into the professional development that we were doing. So you could see these sessions across this top row are really professional development for our teachers, and at the time our teachers were really working hard to help our students understand what they were seeing, mainly in the news media. It was a time of the Black Lives Matter movement kind of really picking up speed, and our students were seeing that on the news and on TV, and our teachers wanted good language to be able to engage and good protocols to be able to engage students in those conversations. So you can see these sessions. We started June 4th with Confronting Racism. That was run by the professional development team. Another one on June 5th, Let's Talk About Race. June 9th, Tony Sananis and Tanuke here from Greeley and our BSU, our Black Student Union, help us put together Unity Day, which was a district-wide event. All the staff was invited, and also the Greeley students. June 10th and 13th, we ran professional development on confronting racism, how to lead difficult and critical conversations with students. You can see June 10th and 11th, mapping the pathway towards social justice. June 15th, we started to look at some of our literature. So Jamie Edelman, our Director of Literacy, led a literature review with our Seven Bridges ELA teachers. And I also want you to note down on June 18th, that was done with Bell. So you'll see that down in the second row. June 15th, we did a session on identity mapping. June 15th and 16th, affinity group, development of anti-racist kids. June 15th and 17th, we started to think about some of our curriculum work that we would be doing over the summer. So we started to think about middle school and high school social studies curriculum and did a little planning with our faculty there. June 16th, we did a session on Juneteenth and how to use that as a teachable moment for our students. June 16th, how to be an anti-racist. We did a deep dive into podcasts, Kendi's podcasts. The PD team led that. And then you see also June 18th, I mentioned that literature review by Jamie. June 18th, we had Facing History here, and they did a virtual session for our faculty on effective facilitation around tough topics, and specifically they were focused on race. And June 18th, we did a session talking about race and racism for our elementary school teachers so they could facilitate conversations with our students. So all of that was the beginning to mid-June. We go on to the next slide. It looks very similar, but this is late June and into July. You can see June 20th. This is our students are still in virtual class at this time. We started to do our 9th grade book selection. You can see we did that for 9th grade on the 20th, and then we did grades 5 and 7 on June 22nd. And then if I skip one, June 24th, we did 6 and 8. You can see on June 23rd, the Life School engaged in some curriculum writing. June 24th, our Director of Literacy met with our students from the BSU to start thinking about book selection and the books that they have read over the years and how they were impacted by those books. June 25th, K-12 literacy audit. We started to think about using the NYU scorecard, which we'll talk to you a little bit more about. And then you see on the 29th and 30th, we did a little bit of a deeper dive down into grade 4. Now, at that point, school had ended, so we could do some full days of curriculum. So you'll start to see more time spent on curriculum rewrites and curriculum revisions. So June 6th and 7th, the Board of Education joined the administrative team. This is when we did our administrative retreat, and we had the Campbell Jones, and we also had NYU here to help facilitate sessions. Those were 2 days of retreat, primarily focused on social justice and anti-racist work here in our district. June 7th and 8th, I'm sorry, you can see June 7th and 8th, 9th and 10th, 13th and 16th. You can see those are also more curriculum work sessions. And then towards the end of that week, you see the various sessions, professional development sessions. They're getting to know your students and community connections. You also start to see some digital citizenship work, and Josh Colwell-Block is here to talk about that. So in late July, you start to see kind of a pattern emerging here. We're spending our time with professional development sessions and also with curriculum writing. You start to see quite a bit of English curriculum writing. You see some life school curriculum writing, social studies curriculum writing. You see the various grades start to be incorporated here. And as you go through, we make sure that we spend quite a bit of time with our English staff and also our social studies staff. But you also see some really interesting things, like on June 21st and 2nd, we have the art curriculum for K-8. And then on August 18th and 19th, you see 5 through 8 music curriculum. So those were educators that put in curriculum proposals because they wanted to do some deep thinking around how they may be able to make adjustments to their curriculum around the topic of race. So this is the last of the timeline slides, and it brings us up to this kind of modern, our current time here. We did August 11th, Principles of Digital Citizenship, which Josh is going to talk more about. You can see, just to pull out some of these things, some of these we ran several times over the summer for our staff, so various staff could participate around their summer schedules. But then as we get towards the end of August and the beginning of September, we did a variety of sessions for our new teachers, for example. Dr. Sananis ran one he's going to share with us a little bit more about in just a few minutes for our new teachers. And then towards the end of the month, and Dr. Ackerman will talk about this in just a minute, as we welcomed our new teachers, but also our teacher leaders back to school, we did some sessions with Campbell Jones for our middle school department chairs, high school department chairs, professional development team, and grade level leaders at the elementary school. So we made sure all of our teacher leaders got some professional development with the Campbell Jones because they had a really good positive impact on the administrative team. So that just gives you an overall sense of just the timeline and the work that we've done. We thought, I know it took a little bit of time, but we thought it was important for the board to see the volume of work and the commitment by the professional development team and others to this work. In addition to those things, we also had a number of faculty-directed learning teams and book clubs. Learning teams and book clubs are designed where a faculty member can propose to create a learning team of other faculty members, and they usually do it around an anchor text or texts. And then they do generally 15 hours of learning together, reading and learning together as a group. So you can see several of those listed here. And then we have two on deck. We have one coming up in the fall with Facing History, Teaching for Equity and Social Justice. And then Tony will talk a little bit more about the affinity groups, which we have planned for the fall as well. One of the things that we do here for the staff is we have something called the CCSD Page Turner Project, and this is basically a digital bulletin board that we have internally, and it's a way for our faculty to share what they're reading. And it's not a requirement, it's just something that if they grab a book that they like and they would like to share it with their colleagues and write a little summary of what they liked about it, they can do that. So it's a neat way for us to track informally what our faculty is reading. And what we saw as we got through June and into July and August is we saw a real kind of population on this digital bulletin board of our teachers reading and learning some really terrific books about social justice and race. And some of them were that students could read, other ones were for educating adults. So all of these weren't. You see some other things kind of mixed in here, but many of them were. So it was nice to see that shift in an informal way through the Page Turner project that we have.
So at our last meeting, we had the opportunity to hear from the Campbell Joneses, who did extensive work with our professional development with our administrative and Board of Education team over the summer. And we had a lot of conversations around cultural proficient organizations, but also about white privilege and how that impacts how we interact and see the world. And so what we had felt was important based on our experience is that we had our teacher leadership teams participate in professional development when they returned from summer break with the Campbell Joneses in work sessions during our opening superintendent conference days. So in terms of those experiences, our leadership teams based on building level had really important conversations around cultural proficiency, microaggressions, and being able to prepare to engage in this really important work over the course of this year. So we also wanted to make sure that our new teachers had professional development as a part of their entry plan, which was spearheaded by Dr. Sananis. And so we had sessions that all of our new teachers experienced around empathy and equity. And then for our upcoming superintendent's conference days, Dr. Sananis and I had the opportunity with a small team to hear from the author of The Person You Mean to Be, Dolly Chung at NYU. And she's agreed to come and work with us, with our faculty on our next professional development experience. And we also plan on having all of our team engage in a book study around her professional work that specifically it talks about the impact of bias and how we interact with people, and particularly our students. Tony?
Thank you, Christine. Good evening, everyone. So one of the other focal points for us as a district has been the launching of our CHAP Equity Pride Fellowship, and Pride standing for Promoting Racial Inclusivity, Diversity, and Equity in our school community. Fellowship is like a PLC that teachers get to participate in, and Our CHAP Equity Pride Fellowship is launching next week. So that was a fellowship that was offered to the staff in January. People had the opportunity to apply. We had intended to start in the spring, but when COVID hit, we put the pause on that. We had to sort of make this really sudden pivot, and we wanted to make sure we gave our teachers the time and space to prepare for that. As part of the fellowship development, we've cultivated a small leadership team of educators who are helping to frame the fellowship and helping to plan for the fellowship. It's really exciting work that's happened. We'll share more information about that at a future presentation. And so I've been working with this team of educators, teacher leaders, to develop a framework for our fellowship. And what we've done is we've sort of developed mini arcs that'll unfold over 3 sessions. And the first focal points will be around identity, building relationships, and establishing norms. We know really clearly that a lot of this work around equity and anti-racism begins with identity work and self-reflection. And so that's where we're going to begin our work with the fellowship team starting next week at our launch.
What we decided through our experience over the summer is that in order to move the work forward, we need to have an extensive professional development approach. And the way that the regulations are written for public schools is that in order to engage in the level of work that we feel is necessary in this district, we have to develop a request for proposals based on the costs that we anticipate will be associated with this work. So Tony is leading the RFP process with the fellowship leadership team. So I'm going to have him talk about that with you right now. So go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine. So the same leadership team that's helping to frame and plan for the fellowship is also working with me to develop the particulars around the RFP, right, the request for proposals. What do we want to focus on in terms of professional development for our staff? And so we've been thinking a lot about that. This is just an excerpt of some of the information that we've considered and thought about. Like, what is it that we want our colleagues to learn about, think about, lean into, grow into? And so we talked a lot about self-reflection, a lot about identity work, a lot about representation. Talked a lot about biases, right? Because we know those are pervasive. Implicit bias is pervasive in the world. Certainly it manifests itself in different ways in our profession, so we want to think about that. The idea of assumptions intersecting very closely with bias, right? Around issues, race, gender, sexuality. Those 3 areas will probably be the main focal points, also as part of the fellowship. And then we drove down to some specific things that we want to explore. Coded language, microaggressions, as you'll see, what people think are jokes, and cultural appropriation, which is incredibly important when you think about a culturally responsive experience that we want to provide to our kids. Being aware of cultural appropriation often can propel that other work around cultural responsiveness forward. So that's some of the stuff that we're thinking about. Equity and diversity, unpacking those concepts, thinking about different cultures and appreciation for those. Very consciously taking the word tolerance out of the conversation. This is not about tolerating people. This is about understanding and appreciating people. And the empathy work that we did with our new teachers just served as a frame for this issue of equity, right? In order to understand other people, you need to be able to see aspects of yourself in other people. And that's what empathy and compassion are about, right? So we focus a lot on that. And then explicit work around anti-racism. Knowing that that's a continuum, right? Knowing that you're a learner, you're an ally, you're an accomplice. There's a continuum around anti-racist work. And so we want to make sure that across that progression, our staff have an entry point no matter where they are in their own learning. So that's some of the stuff that we'll be focusing on through our professional development.
In terms of student learning experiences, I know you're interested to know a little bit more about what does this mean for our students. We were fortunate, as part of our administrative kind of virtual retreat that we did, we got to work with the NYU Metropolitan Center for Research on Equity and the Transformation of Schools. And they developed a fantastic tool that's used across the country called the Culturally Responsive Curriculum Scorecard. And it's a way, you can look it up, it's on their site, it's a way for school districts to review their curriculum, to review a course, to determine if it is appropriately culturally responsive. And so we started to really dive deeply into that tool and learn about it as an administrative team, but start to apply it with some of our curriculum. And we actually, with some use of it, it's actually designed to be fairly easy to use. Parents can use it, parent groups can use it, many school districts use it in the area. So we used that tool and we applied it to quite a few of our courses over the summer as part of that timeline that you saw. We got to see a little bit of it with the leadership team, but then we dove more deeply in it as we did curriculum work with our English department and our social studies department specifically, but we plan on continuing to use that tool, and NYU obviously is right in our backyard, so it's very convenient for us to be able to access the professionals there that are doing that work. So some things that we put in place already that students experienced already here in school, we've put the book stamped into several of our courses, so students will have an experience with that. We bought 4 sections worth of stamped, about 100 copies for our U.S. history students. We also used, we lost John Lewis recently, and we used his final op-ed as a jumping off point for our AP government class. So that was something, he has a definition of democracy in that op-ed, and so we used that as a jumping off point for that course, and something that the faculty will continue to revisit. To work a little bit more to the left there, we did some work with our middle school, having some common definitions around social justice, race, racism, upstander, et cetera. So we did some of that work over the summer. We're doing some work with the 1619 project. So that was the date that the first slave ship arrived in the Virginia colonies, and it's kind of makes an argument that that should be the date that we think about as the first, kind of the start of the country. And so it's a really interesting perspective, and also an interesting tool that we can use in our curriculum, and we have been using it and will continue to use it. And then the last one is this book, Cast, which we're using in our AP US history courses for grade 11, and it's about racism and how racism is really a caste system in this country. So those are some of the experiences that we've already made adjustments to that are impacting students currently as we speak. So I also wanted to mention some other things that we're doing in social studies. We're using several of Kendi's texts to frame our social studies work. We continue to work with Facing History around identity and creating brave spaces for brave conversations for all of our social studies classes 5 through 12. As I mentioned, we're continuing to use this equity audit scorecard from the NYU Metro Center and continue to make updates to our curriculum as we embed themes of social justice and other enduring issues that connect across time with an emphasis on modern day connections. So we did quite a bit of work with our literature, both at elementary school and also secondary, and it's my pleasure to introduce Jamie Edelman as our Director of Literacy, who led that work through the summer and also the curriculum reviews in our English department.
I'm here to talk about some of the changes that we made to the elementary texts that we use in our classrooms. And we had started this work last winter, and we really were so fortunate to receive a grant from the CSF of libraries that would provide windows and mirrors for our students. And when we say windows and mirrors, what we mean by that is we want our students to see themselves reflected in the books that they read, but also see other people and their experiences and their stories and their perspectives. In choosing the books, we used 4 questions that come from Dina Simmons out of Yale, as well as the NYU Culturally Responsive Scorecard. But to share with you what those questions are, because you'll see they've guided the work around literature that we've done at all levels. Those questions are, whose realities are reflected in the texts we have selected for our students to read, whose were not? Who had the privilege of feeling a sense of belonging and value? Who did not? Who was protected and who was vulnerable? Do our texts reflect a diversity of authors and characters, and how are these diverse characters portrayed? So to the members of the board, you have some of those picture books in front of you. We had Jen Thompson, our staff developer, Alyssa Stover, the assistant principal at West Orchard, and I, and Adam Pease wrote the grant, and we looked through so many books and picked our 40 most favorite to place in the hands of our students in our elementary school classrooms. And what you see in this picture is the books came in, we were so excited, and immediately tried to pick our favorites. But what you'll see in those books is you will see some students, I think one of you has a copy of a book about a little girl, and it's called I Will Dance, who is wheelchair bound, and all she wants to do is dance. And you have Thunder Boy Jr., the story of an indigenous little boy who doesn't like his name. And also Bedtime Bonnet, a story of a little girl who can't find her bedtime bonnet that she wears every night when she goes to bed. So you'll get a sense that these books were selected so the children that are in our schools will see themselves reflected in some of them and see others reflected in others. We also were so incredibly fortunate to receive a donation from the Chappaqua Children's Festival of a bunch of books to place in our secondary classrooms. You have some of those in front of you as well. Again, these same questions that I read before were shared with all of our secondary English teachers so that we can think about the kinds of books that we're putting in the hands of kids. And we are also so fortunate to have the Chappaqua Children's Festival right in our community. And Dawn Greenberg, who is in charge of that, is so knowledgeable about great texts that are available and provided us with lots of options, some of which we had already selected to use in our classrooms and others that will be new to us, and our teachers will certainly enjoy having their students read. After hearing from our students and our alumni, we recognized that there were some immediate changes that we needed to make in our curriculum because of how they were making our students feel. So on this slide, you will see that we have immediately changed our plans to have immigration simulations and getting to know you activities that involved family trees and family history projects. And the reason is that these have become complicated, and everybody has a different family history. The way that our families are comprised are different now, and not all of our students felt protected with these kinds of activities. We also made a decision to not use To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn as whole class novels. It was very clear when we spoke to our alumni and our current students. I also spoke to our Black Student Union, as well as the leadership team for the Equity Fellowship. And we thought that it would be better that we find a text to use in lieu of those two, and yet to have those texts available in our classroom libraries or our school library if a student chose to read that for a choice book. The other thing that came up quite frequently in our conversations with the Black Student Union, and when we heard from the alumni and students who spoke out at the board meeting, there was a real discomfort, sense of trauma, bad feeling when teachers read the N-word when it was encountered in a text. And so that word is prohibited in our classrooms, and that includes when a teacher is reading aloud from a text.
One of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is providing safe spaces for students to have conversations with their teachers. So when we started thinking about how we were going to support students as they returned from the summer, we thought about using our ruler program, K-8, to anchor these conversations in core classroom routines. And part of the core classroom routine that students will experience every day is the creation of a classroom charter where they will define how they want their school communities to be within their pods, and also this concept of having a community circle. And this is a place where students will speak with each other and listen to each other while solving problems, team building, or addressing conflicts. And we plan to leverage this space to engage students in work beyond the core curriculum around important issues, including social justice and anti-racism. In addition, we felt in thinking about our high school students that we needed to connect them to our guidance counselors in a more meaningful and intentional way. So as students prepare to return for the fall, the guidance counselors are facilitating their own circles with student groups to help support their return in terms of the pandemic, but also in terms of discussing and supporting student reentry based on all the dynamics that are taking place within our classroom environment. Tony?
Hi again. So I want to just, I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but just to add another layer to this work. It's not lost on us that there's a group of white educators up here talking about equity and the work that we're going to be doing to facilitate that work. So it's been really critical that we have also integrated the voices of our teacher leaders and our teachers who identify as people of color, and our students as well. So they are not just people that we're like vetting ideas by, they're very much informing the decisions. I met with the Black Student Union, which I believe moving forward is going to be going by the BIPOC Student Union as we move forward today, talking about some of the steps we want to take. So that conversation is ongoing, and we are using as many voices as possible to inform this work, because we know there are so many blind spots, right? We know so much of this work around equity has a whole socio-cultural layer to it that is different for every individual. And so if we're going to move forward as a collective, we have to have the voices from constituent members across the community, right? So it's been very important. I just wanted to make sure that you are all aware of that as we think about that, and our board is aware of that as well. So one of the things that our equity leaders are working on is a mentoring program, an alumni mentoring program for our BIPOC students. And they came up with an acronym, it's SEAM, so Support, Empower, Amplify, and Mentor. The word amplify, we also are thinking about this notion of affirming. And we want to make sure that our students of color have the opportunity to connect with alumni members who have had the Greeley experience or the Chappaqua experience and are now elsewhere in the world, to be a support system, to be an opportunity to connect. So we're excited to be launching this year. We've been working on this over the last couple of weeks and look forward to having an update, more formal update down the road. And this is our mission statement, for SEAM. So our BIPOC students need to feel that they belong. They need to be seen and heard. The role of the mentorship program is to amplify the voices and experiences of BIPOC students. We will ensure that BIPOC students are full members of our school community and not just participants, right? This is about centering people who have traditionally been marginalized. It's about identity and representation. And so this mission statement was written by a group of teachers that identify as educators of color. So I just want you to understand some of the background that has informed this work.
An integral part of this work is thinking about digital citizenship. As our digital lives, our lives start merging together, the world of thinking about digital citizenship needs to be formalized in education and in our community. We have looked at multiple different platforms and venues to think about digital citizenship curriculum, and Common Sense Media is a nonprofit organization that works with the Harvard Project Zero at the Harvard Graduate School of Education that is really a comprehensive program for professional development for our school communities and for our student education that focuses around 6 areas, and thinking about cyberbullying, students' digital footprint as our students thinking about the digital content that they're creating and where they're posting it and how they're posting it, and how do we start to cultivate that in a safe way within our schools, thinking about privacy and security, media balance and well-being. So now thinking about what's the content that we're consuming and how do we start to differentiate what the different types of content are out there, and how do we communicate, how do we build relationships both in person and online, and how do we think about what news and media literacy is. The content that is out there on digitally doubles every single year. And if you think about what we think is out there right now, think about what that's going to be like when that doubles 12 months from now. And it's more and more important for our students to be learning these digital citizenship skills. So we've built a program that's going to be a 2-year phase-in, where we're going to be teaching lessons about the first 3 bullets in year 1 and expanding that to all 6 bullets in year 2. We felt the first 3 were a priority for our students in thinking about their digital footprint. Common Sense Media integrates really well into our digital learning goals, and it's going to help us become the leaders in digital citizenship education. They help us plan the lessons, plan our implementation, and then even bring us around full circle to evaluating the implementation of it. It's backed by research. It's broken up into 4 grade band categories. So we get to select what lessons that have been tried out, studied, gone through instructional designers, and which ones we want to teach at which grade levels and which ones we want to move into different grade levels through those 4 grade bands. One of them you could see here is our online tracks. So this is for grade 4. So getting students to think about common language and what does the word digital footprint mean to all of us. So as a district, we could start to think about and have that common language. Thinking about what ways are in a student's control of their digital footprint and how do they take control of the things that are seemingly not in control of our digital footprint, and understand what the responsibilities we have around content creation and posting things online. And these are all done in an age-appropriate and a grade-appropriate way, and it starts to have this scaffolded view as students starting out in kindergarten and how they're thinking about media and how they're thinking about digital footprints, going all the way up to their senior year as they're entering college and thinking about.
So I just wanted to comment briefly on the Board of Education's Community Advisory Committee on Anti-Racism, Equity, and Social Justice. So this is where we see the community helping advise us and give us feedback on the work that we'll be doing collectively moving forward. And I want to thank the Board of Education for leading and forming an advisory committee to help support the district in working collectively with the larger community to help us revise and continue to improve the way that we are supporting our students and moving forward with our anti-racism and social justice initiatives. Now, the first meeting is tentatively scheduled for October 15th, and we look forward in partnering, October 5th, sorry, and we look forward in partnering with the board in this way and moving the work forward. I also wanted to share that over the summer, the Board of Education approved the Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Wellness position. This will be an administrative position at the district office. And Tony is leading the search for this position. We had over 120 applicants. And this person is really going to be an expert who will provide leadership and collaboration in all areas of the school district and help the administrative team and the faculty engage in this work with the entire school district, because we really see our work around equity and inclusion and wellness as a charge for everybody. So we absolutely are committed to bringing in an expert to help support that work and be a member of the central office team. So we're in the process of reviewing resumes right now, and we will be engaging in screening soon, and we hope to have a candidate prepared for the Board of Education to consider at the end of October or early November, and we just wanted to share very briefly what the process would be, which is not unlike many of our other processes as we move forward with administrative and cabinet level positions. And so I asked Tony if he could provide, now that we're moving into the school year and we've done a majority of our hiring of tenure faculty, I asked Tony if he could provide an update on our demographic information.
Just to add to what Christine shared about our Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Wellness, the impetus for that position came from conversations with our kids and with our staff, identifying a need, a gap in our organization and where we needed an additional voice, an additional perspective. And so that really led to the creation of that position. So thank you to the board for supporting that initiative. So we made some really concerted efforts to recruit a more diverse candidate pool for our new teachers this year. And one of the things that we're thinking a lot about is how we can standardize our processes to mitigate bias, because that's a factor, right? What the research shows is when people sit on an interview committee, more often than not, they are looking to hire someone like them, consciously or not, right? That's what we do. We look for people who we're comfortable with, who remind us of ourselves, who we think we can, have lunch with or whatever. So we have to work to push people to put those thoughts aside, to not let those thoughts drive the decision making. And so we've had conversations around questions around how resume review happens, about what tasks candidates are provided as well. We worked on revising our job descriptions. We worked on where we were posting positions. We participated in a diversity recruitment fair where we've hired a couple of candidates who we did interview through that process. And we've seen a significant shift. So last year, only 3% of our new staff members, identified as people of color. And this year, approximately 30% of our new staff members identify as people of color. So it's really exciting to see that shift. But the work doesn't really end there. That's kind of where it starts, because the research is really clear that retention is the challenge. Recruiting and hiring is not necessarily the challenge, but retaining, especially educators of color, in communities that are predominantly white can be challenging. So one of the structures that we're putting in place this year is an affinity circle. And so we have a group, our equity leadership team, who have worked on researching affinity circles, affinity groups, whatever phrase you want to use. And they're safe spaces that offer gathering opportunities for people who share a common identity. So we're going to launch that at the end of this month, beginning of next month. And we're going to start with our educators of color to create a safe space where they can gather and they can share their experiences so that they know that they have an outlet here, they have a support system here, and they have each other at the very least here. And the district is committed to that support moving forward. We're also partnering with NEMNET, which is diversity recruitment consultants, and it's great to not only partner with them, but know that we're supporting a Black-owned business in doing that work as well. And that's going to help us prepare for the 21 recruitment season in the spring. So just some of the things that we're considering right now around our staffing.
Just want to very briefly just touch on our code of conduct revision. So over the summer, we had a policy subcommittee meet that had members of our community, members of our administrative staff, and our Board of Education. And we had worked together to create a draft code of conduct based on the feedback that we had received from the community regarding the incident that took place towards the end of the spring semester. So what we did was we created a draft that looked at how we could hold students accountable in a way that was more consistent, and also leverage a process to ensure that students learned from their behavior to support their reacclimation to the school community. So what we had done, and just in terms of process, is we created our draft and we received feedback from the faculty and focus groups, specific student focus groups. We received parent comments by email and through a public hearing, and then the subcommittee revised the draft code of conduct, which was presented to the Board of Education on September 1st, adopted, and sent out to our families. So there's two major changes to the code of conduct that I want to highlight tonight. In addition to adding really important language, we fine-tuned and honed in our response when we had hate, discrimination, and bias incidents occurred. So you'll see here that we have a first and second offense tiered response at the middle and high school level, but we also retain the right to convene a superintendent's hearing for a first offense or second offense at the middle or high school level based on the nature of the incident. But in short, if a student is found responsible for engaging in behavior that would constitute discrimination, hate speech, or bias incident, at the high school level, their minimum intervention would be a 2-day out of suspension. At the middle level, it would be a 2-day in-school or out-of-school suspension. We also added a restorative justice piece, where if a student had an out-of-school suspension at the high school level or an in-school or out-of-school suspension at the middle school level, for any infraction, if they had no additional violations over a period of 12 months, they completed a substantial educational reflection process, they completed a substantial community service project, and then if the student's behavior harmed another individual, that they would interact and make amends with that student or students harmed by their behavior. If they took those 4 steps under the direction of the building principal, they would have the opportunity to have their suspension expunged from their record. We also wanted to make sure that we addressed when we were communicating about specific incidents to the school community. And what we decided that our principals would do is when there was an incident where hate speech, bias, or discrimination occurred that resulted in disciplinary action that rose to the level of a superintendent's hearing, and that would be a 5-day out-of-school suspension with a referral to my office to see if further discipline was warranted, that the principal would send out a communication to the school community. And the superintendent would send out a communication to families if there were patterns that were emerging across the district. And then I would communicate quarterly to the Board of Education incidents that involved hate speech, bias, and discrimination. And so you'll see down here, I've articulated the dates that those reports will be due to the Board of Education at a public meeting, so that our parents and our community at large could have an understanding of what was occurring within the context of our school buildings. Now, I haven't shared the structure of how those reports will be shared with the Board of Education, because I would like some feedback from the Community Advisory Committee before we move forward and decide how that would be shared with the larger community. Also, we talked about in June the importance of gathering some benchmark data from our students. So we will be engaging in a climate survey with Panoramic Education, and we've used them in the past in this district to gather feedback from our students on their perceptions of what it was like being a student in our school district. So we are going to use them again, but this time our survey will be based on equity and inclusion in our school. And we have just included some sample questions that would be included in the Panoramic survey. Now, they typically develop surveys around equity for students in grades 5 through 12, but we might be able to leverage a survey as early as 3rd grade. We still need to process whether or not that makes sense. And moving forward, we'll be talking about that, but we anticipate administering this survey at some point in November. So I wanted to share with you what our next steps are in terms of moving forward. And we plan to provide another update to the Board of Education, a comprehensive update at the second meeting in January. But in terms of how we see ourselves as a collective group working on the fall, we plan on identifying and sharing strategic goals crafted by the Community Advisory Committee on Anti-Racism, Equity, and Social Justice. Administering the climate assessment tool for students and sharing the results with the community. Reconvening the district strategic planning steering committee to analyze student climate survey results and consider strategic plan revisions. Identifying professional development scope and approach for all staff based on the RFP that's awarded. Expanding our curricular experiences for all of our students. Hiring the director of equity, inclusion, and wellness. Establishing our affinity groups for our BIPOC faculty, and implementing our mentoring program for our BIPOC students. So those will be our major areas that we'll be working towards updating the Board of Education in January. And that concludes our presentation. So I think what I would like to say is that there's been a tremendous amount of work that's been happening in this district, as you can see based on what we presented tonight, but we absolutely know that it's not enough. And it probably will never be enough. But we are committed to moving forward collectively because our students deserve it. And so we look forward to partnering with the Community Advisory Committee under the direction of Holly and Vicki, and taking feedback, refining our practices, and moving forward collectively to be better. And so we appreciate everyone taking their time I know this was a pretty extensive presentation, and I just want to thank my colleagues for helping me present tonight and for the good work that they've been leading with our faculty and helping us collectively move forward as a school community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine, Adam, Tony, and Josh. Have I forgotten anyone?
Jamie.
And David. Yes, Jamie. And Jamie. Yes, thank you so much. So at this point, I'll open it up to the board. Any questions and comments on the presentation?
First of all, I just am very grateful to see the work that was put into this. And I know that this, as Christine said, we know we have a lot of work to do, but for us to see the breadth and the depth of the work that was put into this is very rewarding, and I think it will be hugely impactful for the community. So I want to thank all of you. We see it more than I think most of the community sees it. The hours that get put in by the staff here is tremendous. And I hope that the commitment comes through, because I know everyone that works on this is absolutely committed to making this a safe and protected environment for every person in this community. This is not obviously just a Chappaqua issue that we're dealing with here. This is a global issue, but I see the commitment, and I know it's heartfelt, and I hope that the community realizes that as well and realizes that the work will be ongoing. But I feel incredibly grateful to have the resources, not just financial resources, but the staff resources and the human resources that we have in this district to move this work forward. And I really want to thank you all for the tremendous work.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Jane said and thank you all for this. And I think whenever any group, a community or school or any group is confronted with the knowledge that there is a problem as pervasive as what we've faced, there's an instinct, obviously, to want to fix things as quickly as possible. But it's even more so, it's important to make sure you do things right and not only do things quickly. And I know that everybody working on these issues has taken great care to make sure that the work we're doing is good work and not just fast work. But I am amazed by how much has been able to be done already this summer when there were a few things going on. So amidst the pandemic and trying to reopen and trying to do everything, thank you for still prioritizing this work and making sure that we could take major steps forward, even knowing that they're only the first steps in what's an ongoing effort. But thank you for being conscious of not only doing the work fast, but doing it well.
All right, so this was so much work, and I think it's really indicative of the commitment that this district is making to do better. And I really do appreciate all of the time that's been spent in already working and learning, in addition to the planning to continue to move forward. We know that this is a first step in a journey that, while it may start with us, isn't going to end here. So I just wanted to say thank you also to the community for sharing and participating, being willing to serve on our committee. Something that really stuck with me over the summer listening to the Campbell Joneses was Brenda said, when you know better, you can do better. And I think that there was a lot of time spent over the summer knowing better. And now these are some really concrete steps to do better. And I'm very glad that I get to be a part of the committee, and I commit to keep listening so that we can continue to know better and continue to do better. So just another thank you to all of the administrators and educators and leaders in the district for spending so much of your professional development time on this. As Hillary said, there was a lot of other things going on too, but the fact that this was still a priority is very telling about how important this is to us. So.
Thank you. I just want to echo what everyone said, that it's been an incredible amount of work during an extremely challenging time with this pandemic. But I just have to say, as the only BIPOC person here on the board and sitting up here with the administrators, it really had to happen this way, because I can tell you that the harm caused to children and their families as they experience incidents of hate, the harm is really irreversible. And no matter what is going on in the world, we cannot tolerate a situation where children are harmed to this extent. So I really do want to commend the administration for this plan. I don't know that any other school district has this kind of extensive plan, but we really do demand the best in this district, and that's why people come here. I just want to understand a little bit better about a system of accountability for the plan. I know that we've utilized the NYU Equity Audit Scorecard, and I want to ask about that. I want to know if that is a comprehensive enough system to have an accountability plan. I know that we're going to work on this with the committee, but I just want to hear for now about this NYU scorecard and how that's going to work.
Adam, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So we started our NYU scorecard work with social studies, where Mary Devane helped lead that work. She's a former social studies teacher here at Greeley and department chair, and she actually worked through, she brought her former course, a unit from her course, and they pushed that unit through the scorecard with the faculty, with the various grade level teachers in social studies. And once they practiced using it as a kind of an exemplar unit, or a unit that they could practice with the scorecard, then the teachers went off after they had some proficiency with it to be able to use it to examine their courses. And as I mentioned, the scorecard's really designed so it can really be used by anyone. It's not designed to be used only by highly trained, kind of highly technical people. It's really designed to be used by parents and educators to make decisions around improving curriculum. So that's the work that we've done so far. So we used it for social studies, and we also actually used it, we modified it a little bit and used it for some of our conversations around English as well, and with our English curriculum.
Okay, and do you also foresee using any other kinds of system for assessing the work that's being done?
I think probably too, in terms of the shift in culture, we will use our benchmark assessment system with Panorama. And then
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
okay, so I think part of our assessment system will be the benchmark survey that we administer to our students in November, and then a re-administration of that at some point in the future to see if we have identified and closed any gaps that exist or addressed any concerns that are unearthed through that survey mechanism. I also think that the quarterly reporting that I'll be providing to the Board of Education will lend itself to an accountable lens that we haven't experienced before in the school district. So I think that in addition to assessing our curriculum work through an audit process, I think there'll be other mechanisms for us to measure our work that will be equally as helpful in tracking student climate and our ability to move forward and really address the concerns that our students have identified as members of our school community.
Okay, thank you. So I think, as Christine said, this is not, again, this is a work in progress. This is not going to solve everything, but we will continue to work on this. I think as difficult as this work is and as complex as it is for a school system, in some ways, I think that focusing on the schools is going to be easy. We're going to do this work. We're going to keep at it. I think what's going to be harder is to do this work in the community, and that has to get done. And I would ask the many community groups that are out there now to begin to think about that. How will this work be done within families when the kids are not in school, around the dinner table? When people are together talking with their kids. How do you talk to your kids? What are the things you say when you think the kids are not listening? There's a lot of work to be done, and this is work that has to be done in the community. So this is to be continued. Again, thank you very much. Really appreciate everything that's been done this summer, and it's been an impressive amount of time and energy, so thank you.
Okay, so we're going to continue. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I know that you want to continue with the superintendent's report, and I'm just thinking of when to do public comment. I just want to get a sense of time.
Maybe two. You want to do public comment?
We'll have two public comments, so, okay.
Now on the presentation, and then after.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, does the board approve of that? Okay. So we'll have two public comment periods. One of them will be right now. We'll take comments on the presentation. And then we'll have another public comment period after the superintendent's report. Okay, so if anyone would like to come up to the microphone, please state your name, and just know that public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, and after public comment has been completed, the board members may have a discussion among themselves regarding the comments presented.
Hello. Oh, wow, that's loud. My name is Emily Noble. I graduated from Greeley this past June, and I have a few thoughts on what I've seen, obviously, also as a person of color who went through the school system from middle school and the high school. I have a lot to say. I noticed, like, even in terms of us talking about racism, a lot of what we were talking about was about addressing racism, but I felt like we weren't saying the word racism a lot, like as if it was something we're scared to say, even though the whole point of this and the whole point of trying to make a change is we can't be afraid to address the problem. That's just what I noticed, people being like, oh, the issue, or, and another thing is in terms of SEAM, like that sounds like a very good plan to me, I think. I don't know how the outreach is going to work for that. I'd be interested in hearing about that. I also wrote some other stuff down. Sorry. But I just, also in the beginning of the meeting, I heard a comment of, said that since racism is everywhere, how are we, it came off very, I don't know how to explain how it came off, but it was kind of almost seemed like you're justifying it for the district because racism is everywhere, therefore there's like nothing we can do. And I know that's not what the intention was, but that's how it came off. And then I think that people aren't expecting racism to disappear. I think we all know that racism is everywhere. But what we are expecting is our own district to address it accordingly, especially if we want to pride ourselves as being an amazing school district. We have to know how to deal with issues, real issues that we face in the world. And in terms of the suspension that I saw, the suspension plan where it was like 2 to 5 days or something, if an incident of like racial bias, or it seemed very vague. So I was just curious how that would be judged, who would be judging in terms of whether it was an incident of racism or hate speech, or how we are going to define that moving forward. And especially racial bias, like that's something that's extremely hard to address since most of it is implicit, I would say. I want to see if there's anything else. And I do see that we are trying to move forward as a district, but I don't feel as if we should already be patting ourselves on the back for the work we've done, because I do feel like there's a lot of work to be done. And even in Greeley, I feel like personally as a student, I had to push for a lot of initiatives in terms of racism, and including starting like CHAP equity and all that stuff. I always felt like racism was on the backboard, and even bringing it up to teachers, they were like, okay, we'll address racism after we do this, and we plan homecoming, and we plan this. And so I don't believe that it has been one of our priorities until maybe recently, until like the BLM movement really picked up speed. So I just feel like there's a lot of work to be done, and we can't pat ourselves on the back yet until, and I would just like a few of my questions answered in terms of that. But I do see, yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come up? Yes.
Hi, everyone. Oh, wow, this is loud. My name's Dylan. I also graduated in June with Emily, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that going through Greeley and Bell with Emily, I went to the same schools, took the same classes, but I had a very large, very substantial different experience than her, and it's something I feel like not a lot of people want to talk about. There's a lot of oversight that I heard through my years in Chappaqua. I know a lot of people were really proud of the academics, as they should be, and it's something that a lot of the district is really focused on, but I know the Black Lives Matter movement came to great prominence in June, but we've had incidents going on for years. I want to say in elementary school, I remember hearing about issues. All through middle school, there were big problems. I even remember hearing about issues of the N-word being used when I was maybe a freshman or a sophomore, and I really appreciate what the board's doing right now. But my question is, how is oversight really occurring? Because I know right now the community's putting a lot of pressure, but what was happening before the Black Lives Matter movement was so prominent in the community? What were we doing when we had the same type of issues, but there wasn't as much pressure? So I guess that's what I'm wondering about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please come up.
Hi, my name is Youngju Yun. I came here last time, and then just a little thought. I really appreciate what's going on, and the school opening is 100 times better than the springtime, and then I really enjoy what's happening right now. And then I'm very impressed what I saw today. I think that there was a lot of progress, but I think that we are missing one part, which is a family unit. Children usually learn from their parents. So racism is not just happening when they are in school. They are learning from their parents. And I think there has to be a way the kids can learn from school, they can bring it back to their home and talk to their parents about it. So would it be better if there was some sort of a handbook so that our kids can bring it to our parents and talk about it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Mofield, and I'm the president this year of the Chappaqua PTA. And thank you for everything you've presented tonight and all the hard work you've done since June. We appreciate that. I wanted to just mention with regard to the community aspect and the parent aspect that June just brought up, that the Chappaqua PTA has, in June, we began our work, and we started a diversity committee for the PTA that is, the official title is the Diversity, Race, and Broadening Participation Committee. And what you're talking about for the family part and the community aspect, that's where we hope that we can partner with the district and work on those issues of implicit bias and anti-racism and all of the other priorities that the Chappaqua PTA has and the district now has also. And that's where we are, and I invite anyone in the community who would like to be part of that to reach out to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we will move on. Christine, would you like to?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, let me first ask the board, is there anything that anyone would like to say in response to the comments? No? Okay.
I just want to thank people for being here and sharing their thoughts, because I know we're very happy that a lot of work has been done, but I think that, Emily made a...
Sorry, I can't hear
you. You should get closer to your mic. I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank the community for sharing their thoughts and just kind of acknowledge the point that Emily had made, that we're sort of patting ourselves on the back, which I'm not exactly completely in agreement with, but I do think that there's a long way to go. And while I'm proud of the work that's been done, I'll be even more proud a few years down the line.
Fine. Also, I'd like to point out that I was most probably unclear with what I said. When I was saying that there is racism everywhere, certainly the message is not that there's nothing we can do about it. God forbid. The message is that the community needs to look to more than the school district to solve this problem, needs to look to itself as well. So both things need to happen in order to have a meaningful impact. So that's my message. And, I'm sorry if that makes people uncomfortable, but that is the truth, that the school district must do its work, but the community must do the work as well. So I hope that that's a little bit clearer. Okay, Christine?
So I have a couple of things. So I just, Dylan, Emily, thank you for coming tonight. We don't often have former graduates at a meeting at 9:30 on a weekday, so thank you for coming. And I think that, I know that you alluded to feeling like community pressure, and that might be driving some of what's happening. And I do feel pressure, but it's not from the community. It's from the different experience that you both have that Dylan, you highlighted tonight when you compared your experience with Emily's. I feel a lot of pressure to do better for our students based on what was shared with NAM. I was mortified. I continue to be embarrassed that kids experienced what they had while I've been superintendent of this district. So if there's any pressure, it's pressure we're placing on ourselves because we know our students deserve better than what has been described, has been the experience that some of our kids have had based on who they are as people. It's just not acceptable. And I am sorry for that. I remain deeply sorry, and we will continue to work because it's the right thing to do. So let me just clarify a few things. So in terms of the code of conduct, the hate speech, bias, discrimination, it's all very clearly defined, so we know how to hold students accountable when they engage in certain behaviors. And the principal is the only authority that has the ability to suspend a student based on their behavior. So they're the person that would decide whether or not a student engaged in conduct that would be classified as one of those areas, and then would have to impose the suspension. They also can decide to exceed the consequences that I articulated before, but they can't give something less than the minimum expectation. I would say that while we did have significant equity work taking place in the school district before we had the incident and the meeting in June, it wasn't done with enough urgency. And I think what happened when June happened is that it appropriately accelerated that work significantly, which is why you saw tonight a tremendous amount that has occurred over 2 months. But I do want to acknowledge that the reason that you saw that accelerated pace was because of what happened in June. And so, again, it's while we were engaged in work around equity, particularly Dr. Sinanis, it wasn't enough. It wasn't done fast enough. And we can't work fast enough right now, but we will continue to work really hard to be better for our kids. And I agree holistically that we need to partner with our parents. It's not going to be enough that my students learn about social justice or racism in their classrooms. They need to learn from me as their mom about what we believe in and stand for as an entire community, not just as a school community. So we appreciate our partnership with the PTA. And usually we focus on we have yearly focuses on different educational initiatives, and I'm happy to know that we'll be partnering together on our anti-racism work collectively with our parent community. And we have a structure and a model that we've used in the past, and I look forward to expanding on that model as we move into the next school year. So again, I thank everyone for making their comments. We'll continue to listen to your feedback and your suggestion and your experiences, because it only makes us better moving forward. And so, thank you. Okay, so do you want me to continue on with the superintendent? Yes. Okay, so we gotta move back up there. All right, so I have some other important information that I'd like to share tonight. So First, just a schedule update. So all of us who are in school and have kids, we know where we are in terms of school. So we are at 100% capacity at the elementary level with students who have self-selected to be remote learners this week, and they're indicating at the end of the day tomorrow if they will continue on remote instruction moving forward. We have our middle schools at half capacity with half the students at home on remote instruction, moving to an every other day model. And then at high school, we have 1/3 of our students coming in and 2/3 of our students still at home. And then our on-site schedule starting the week of September 28th is pending based on our experience opening up at half capacity at the middle school and then shoring up some staffing issues at the high school. But we anticipate being able to move forward at least at the high school at half capacity starting on the 28th. I want to talk with you a little bit about what is happening at the middle school after Tony updates you on staffing. So Tony, can you please update?
Sure. Yeah, as was up there, here it is. We did have a few retirements and resignations after June 30th, which is, it happens sometimes. We had a higher number. I think we all know it's somewhat related to the pandemic and COVID. But most of the positions that were a result of retirement or resignation have been filled. We have a couple of outstanding positions, but I'm excited to share that it looks like we have a finalist for our middle school fax position. And hopefully we'll have a candidate to Dr. Ackerman within the next several days. And our high school special ed position that's vacant is being narrowed down to a couple of finalists. So I hope that we will have a candidate there. And on the other side of that slide, there was information regarding some of our staff needs as it relates to people who are right now working from home remotely due to a workplace accommodation because of underlying health issues, and teachers who are out on childcare leaves. There are special provisions in place as a result of COVID that allow for different types of leaves than what has been traditionally done under FMLA. And then we also have teachers who are out on a medical leave due to an ongoing medical condition. So it's a significant number of staff that are not necessarily in the classroom, and so we have to work diligently to hire substitutes to support some of that work and fill some of these positions. But we are making progress, but we are still needing more bodies, and Christine's going to touch on that next.
Right, so we absolutely are committed to bringing our middle school students back every day. We know how important that is. But I just want to share with you a supervision issue that we're currently grappling with. So we need 6 extra people at each building to help support coverage. And what we need help with is supervising our students while our faculty eat lunch, have their prep, or we have to cover pods due to staff absences. So tomorrow we're pushing out to the whole community an opportunity if our college students, or we have parents who right now aren't working, or they were ever interested in working in a school and having experience. We're looking for some people to either work hourly or as full-day substitutes in order to fill these extra positions that we need in order to open fully. So our minimum qualifications for working with us to have a screening interview is you have to have fingerprint clearance, you have to have a high school diploma, and then basically you need to be able to effectively supervise children, maintain student confidentiality, and be able to work in either Seven Bridges or Bell. So if we're able to work to secure the extra people that we need to open the building at 100% capacity, we will move forward in doing so. But we are still in a place where we can't do that because we don't have enough people to cover the necessary classes that are necessary classes that we need in order to operate our pods fully. So I just wanted to also share with you an athletics update. So first of all, the section 1 that we're a part of in the New York State Athletic Association has released guidance about how we could move forward in terms of supporting our student athletes. So our fall program will run starting at the end of September, with the exception of football, volleyball, and cheerleading, competitive cheerleading. Those sports have been moved to the spring in a bifurcated schedule. And so right now, Jason is working with our teams that are able to play in the fall to prepare for opening. And right now, we're only permitted to run JV and varsity athletics. We're not permitted to run modified athletics. So there is a safety plan that needs to be created in order for our kids to participate in athletics on our in our facilities, and Jason is in the process of crafting that together with our coaches. We also have limitations on the number of spectators that can participate in watching our games, and we are working towards adhering to those limitations and communicating out with families how we'll move forward in supporting parents in watching their athletes play, but also meeting the guidelines that are provided to us by the New York State Athletic Association. And all this has been communicated to our families of athletes. I'm just updating the Board of Education tonight. We also will begin to allow the recreation teams to use our fields, but the only teams that we will allow to use our fields are those that have been granted access to play at the varsity and JV letter aligned with the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. And those teams will have to submit safety plans that I will have to approve. And then right now we're only going to be opening Greeley because we will have security monitoring, plan compliance to ensure that our teams are adhering to the rules that we need to make sure are in operation for teams to use our facilities safely. Okay, so there's 3 areas I wanted to share out with the board tonight that I'll be sharing with the community towards the end of the week. And they are around school closures. So the first is, as I shared before school started, and hopefully we're not going to be in this situation because we're now nearing towards the end of September. But I had shared with the community that if we had exceeded the heat index as defined by our hot weather protocol, and we are unable to use our cooling stations, that I would make a decision as to whether or not the district would have to be on a remote instruction day. The second is the state ed department has said that we can, instead of having a snow day, have a remote instruction day and count that as a school day. I'm not prepared to say that that's going to be a pathway that we're going to exercise right now, because I know that when we have snow days, we often lose power, and I don't want the stress on students of having to maneuver online during a snowstorm. So I'll make those decisions as we get closer into the winter season, and a lot of those decisions will depend on the nature of the storm, why we wouldn't be in school on a particular day, and the number of snow days that we've already used in terms of our allocation in the calendar. And then the final piece of this, which is new, is that because we have so many people that we need to operate our programs at the middle school and the elementary school, we may not be able to cover staff if we have a number of staff out on a given day for absences. So we may have to move to remote instruction if we have a high absentee rate in a particular building on a particular day. So what we're anticipating right now is that if we're at probably like 10%, we're at a 10% absentee rate in a given building, we may have to close and have a remote instruction day. So I want to let parents know about that now before we move into the flu season. If possible, if we anticipate that we may have an issue, I'll try to make a call the night before, because I know the inconvenience that causes, particularly for working families, if they don't anticipate a remote instruction day. And then, John, can you share a little bit in terms of our budget, aside from staffing, since we're still working on that?
Yes, just like what Christine said, this budget is a non-personnel budget. And the important things to note here is that if you break down to two years, the revenue side, 2 parts. One is the revenue and one is the expenditure. So the revenue, we have experienced cuts already. In August, our state aid was cut, the receivable was cut by 20%. So that's what the total is. The excess cost aid was reduced, and also the BOCES aid was reduced. And then, as the governor indicated before, we can expect another cut probably towards the end of this calendar year. And so that was anticipated. And on the expenditure side, we broke it out into two years because we started very early, and the strength of this chart shows that there are three areas that we started very early in order for us to open now. One is the technology, and the other one is the facilities with HVAC expenditures that we upgraded and we cleaned all the HVAC equipment. And in technology, Josh started purchasing all the necessary equipment, supplies early on. And so we are able to have the classrooms ready to go. And then the third area is transportation. We fulfilled our obligation started last year, and therefore we have the Chappaqua transportation going, and we're able to have this now and going forward. So this is what we have so far. These are all the non-personnel expenditures.
All right, so that concludes the superintendent's report. These are just a few Bitmoji kids classrooms because we still are doing a lot of instruction online. And I know that we've been working particularly with the Bell School in helping support remote instruction and increasing our Wi-Fi capabilities at that building level. We've had significant unanticipated issues, but I appreciate Josh and Adam's work in terms of supporting our staff and our parents as we continue to improve our instructional technology at that particular building that has very unique needs because of the age and location of it. So we're going to continue to move forward and continue to make adjustments, and each day our instruction gets stronger. We appreciate everyone's patience and understanding as we navigate this unprecedented instructional circumstance we find ourselves in due to the pandemic, but we are committed to having our students K through 8 in school each day, provided we can do so safely. And so I know that there was a lot of concern when I didn't move forward in that direction for the middle school last week, but we just weren't ready. And we're still not ready to do that. And if we don't have the appropriate staffing, I am not going to do it. And so hopefully we'll be able to move forward and secure the people that we need so that we can open our pods up to all of our kids and have them back to school every day. And that's our goal, and that's certainly our commitment. We're still going to continue to work in that direction. Right, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine.
Unassigned fund balance, that means excess fund balance above the 4%, we have excess of $500,000. So that amount is going to be moved to this year, and we are using that funds to support this year. And obviously the most important, I think the largest expense for this year is really the personnel part. And that part is still unknown right now because as you can see, we're still doing the hiring. So that's where we are at right now.
Okay, so are you saying we don't know yet if we're above budget because of the personnel side? Well, with what you just showed us, with the operations,
is non-personnel expenditures.
Okay, so have the non-personnel expenditures gone above budget?
We are probably right at the budget right now.
Okay.
So we're not over right now.
And is there an expectation that the non-personnel expenditures will continue to rise on, in a way that's unanticipated?
I think the non-personnel expenditures, I think this year we are fine. The reason is because I think technology, we have purchased everything that we need to purchase. Any additional things I think will be minimal. And as far as HVAC is concerned, we will continue the regular maintenance. The major things was done already. And and then also all the other materials, I think it just come out of the regular budget.
We are going to be way over budget for personnel.
Personnel, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
We are hiring staff to support the pods that we didn't anticipate hiring. We'll be able to absorb it, but we are significantly over budget.
Okay.
We'll have a
And-
better idea probably at the second meeting in October.
And will those increases be on the, be limited to salary expenditures, or will we be going into benefits?
Well,
As well.
when it comes to personnel, will be mostly salaries, but also will be benefits. Think about, when you have more people retiring, in retirement, we still have their benefits. So,
And medical, right, that's what I'm.
Well,
yeah.
we have a lot of leave replacements, and so they will have benefits. So it's not
Right,
just
because we
the-
have a lot of temporary staff
Right.
as well, so I'm just trying to figure out what the balance is.
We have more leave replacements than we've probably ever had as a district in a given year. And then we have more sub-covers than we've ever needed on a regular basis to support the models.
Okay, so at
we-
this time, do you have any kind of ballpark or estimate as to how
I think we
over?
really need to look at it, because
Okay,
right now
all
it's
right.
still ongoing. Just like you say, we're trying to advertise to hire more people. Just the big picture, when we try to split the classroom into two, and the second room still need a person, there's extra people.
Yeah,
And even with the aides, you can tell with the agendas, several agendas already, we have to add hours. And so personnel is going to be the areas where we're going to be spending money.
Yeah, I
But
understand.
that is
Okay.
necessary.
Yep, it is.
So maybe our target can be the second week in October. We can let you know what the personnel budget looks like, because by that time, we'll know if we can run the full middle school model.
Right.
We'll have an idea of how many people on a regular basis we're needing to help support the model in the school districts, including subs for staff that are out.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I had a question about the virtual and in-person. What, do you know approximately how many students have opted for complete virtual? And it's probably far too soon to see, but I'd love to know if you see trends developing where, more people are opting to come into the buildings as we get a little further into the year.
Just give me 1 second. Okay, so for kindergarten and first grade, we have 25 students total in the district for each grade. And for second grade, it's 36 students. For third grade, it's 38 students. For fourth grade, it's 35. And then at the middle level, for fifth grade, this is both buildings, it's 39 total. Sixth grade is 26, seventh grade is 58, and eighth grade is 41. And that's this week. Next week, it might look different. And then at the high school, it's a different model. So we don't have students right now indicating whether or not they're going to be virtual because it's more flexible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else with questions for the superintendent's report? Okay. Are there any committee reports? We have not had a communications committee meeting, however, we do.
Next week,
We
yeah.
do talk to Christine and do review some of the communications that do go out to the public, so we have done that. And we have something on the calendar next week.
Yes, we
Right.
do.
Okay. Policy, is there anything to report?
We had a policy committee meeting yesterday?
No.
Yes?
Yes?
Yep.
Wow. Yesterday, we had a policy committee meeting. And we were looking at whether there were policies that needed revision, mostly around the animal, the animals at school policy, and we've made some revisions, which will be submitted to the board for review shortly.
And the policy, the appeal policy.
Yes, and the appeal policy.
which we also made some revisions, which will go to the full board for review, probably for the next meeting.
On September 30th. For first
Okay,
reading.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything from facilities?
No, nothing beyond the fields for sports.
Right.
and-
Okay, and for audit, Warren isn't here, but we do have an audit committee meeting on the calendar for
Monday.
Next Monday.
Next Monday, yes, so we'll give a report after that meeting. Have I covered everything? I think that's it. Okay. All right, so now we've reached the second public comment period. Again, we welcome public comments, and in respect of each other's time, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any other public comments tonight? Nope. Oh, yes, please.
So it's purely about the remote learning session. So I know there are a lot of kids who's going to the school, they have aid and then they have direct contact with teachers. So it's much easier for them to understand the whole lesson. But somebody who's just staying at home, if they miss it, it's very hard to catch. So I just wonder if it's possible for them to replay the lesson of the day, like at least like a couple of days they can store the what the lesson was, and it's available on the on the website. So it will be really helpful because my son has a little difficulty to following up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I'm going to move on to approvals and ratification. I'd like to take items 3.1 and 3.2 together. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of the September 1st and the September 8th, 2020 minutes?
I'll move 3.1 and 3.2.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I recommend 4.1 instructional as presented.
I will move item 4.1 instructional. Personnel?
I'll second.
Holly seconds. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I recommend 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
Okay, I will move item 4.2 non-instructional. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions, comments? No, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We will now come to our consent agenda. This permits the board to make effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover routine matters. Does any member of the board wish to discuss a particular piece of business in the consent agenda individually? Okay.
No.
So this time I'd like to ask for a motion and a second on the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll second the consent agenda.
Okay, and just so the public knows, the consent agenda is for CSE summaries, a vendor contract, and 2 agreements for services. This would be items 5.1 through 5.4. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Facilities, we know we don't have a report. May I have a motion to take the items in Section 7, items 7.1 through 7.3, a motion to acknowledge receipt of the claims auditor's report, the revenue status report, and the appropriation status report, all from August 2020.
I move that we acknowledge receipt of the financial reports.
May I have a second?
I second.
Hillary seconds. Any questions or comments on the financials? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. We've come to notice of future meetings. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 30th at 7:30. We will have the audit approval at that time. The meeting will be here at the Horace Greeley High School auditorium. Following that will be our Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 meeting, also at 7:30 at the Horace Greeley auditorium. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
I will move to adjourn the meeting. I'm looking at 10:06 PM.
I second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the meeting is hereby adjourned at 10:06 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.